Welcome to Guided Spirit Conversations. I'm your host, Marla Goldberg. This podcast has been created with you in mind to acquaint you with some of the most incredible metaphysicians and spiritual leaders from around the globe who have helped others change their lives. In this interactive hour, you will be offered insights and techniques to help you make a difference in your life. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite listening platform. And here we go, on to the show. Hello, and happy Thursday, and happy first day of fall to you all. How are you doing?
Yeah.
I'm Marla Goldberg. I'm your host today on Guided Spirit Conversations podcast, and I'm really thrilled to have another amazing psychic medium to share with you. Her name is Anita Kimbler, and Anita is a psychic medium, as I mentioned, author of My Spirit Guides Speak. She's an energy healer, an intuitive spiritual guide, which she guides through her classes, workshops, and retreats. She has been working in this world for 15 years. I'm not giving away her age, even though she told me. That's our little secret. But welcome, Anita. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me, Marla.
I am so happy to hear you. You, as I mentioned, someone very dear to me told me about you, and I'm so happy that you're here. And you were so good about getting me all your questions, and you have some amazing questions. But I always like to start with, how did you start your journey?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So how I stepped into it, it was as an adult. So I literally started putting, I didn't know what a psychic was when I was a kid. I saw spirits, literally people walking past in my kitchen when I was in my bedroom. But you don't know what that stuff is when you're little until you grow up and you start figuring out what all this stuff really is.
Right.
So the short of it is I literally felt the need, like I was being told to do this, to put a table and 2 chairs in my dining room. And my husband was like, "What the hell are you doing? There's no space for a table and 2 chairs in here." And I'm like, "I don't know. I just feel like I have to do it." And I mean, I'd be lying if I told you the time frame, if it was 2 weeks or 2 months later, I was doing readings out of my living room. So that's how it all began. I just trusted. I took the leap. I always close my eyes when I'm doing these things. I close my eyes, I jump, and it's like, I'll think about it later.
Right. It's like it's ready, fire, aim.
Right.
You know, let's get the show on the road. Well, and too, sometimes spirit isn't the most impatient being on the other side of the veil, and
Right.
they want they want you on the path, doing what you're meant to do, what you're here to do, and it's almost like they have a cattle prod just pushing you along behind you, right?
And I'm very good at listening to that cattle prod. Like I just go with it. And that's something that I try to teach people too, because it is a trust thing, because you don't know what's on the other side. You don't know what's happening.
So, okay, I'm gonna start asking questions backwards, because you
Sure.
brought up the trust thing.
Yeah.
And I know that for me, when I first started realizing my gifts, my abilities, because some people say they're not gifts, they're abilities, whatever
Right.
you want to call them, they are.
Right.
And, like I'd hear this voice, but it was in my own voice. It wasn't like I always thought when other people would say, wait, stop, they're saying, I'm thinking, oh, you're going to hear this deep voice or this other voice of a different pitch talking
Yes.
to you. And it doesn't work that way. And you just have to believe that what you're hearing
Mm-hmm.
is pure spirit guidance.
Yep. Yeah. And so the way that I interpret that voice is, people always say, because I get a lot of pre-psychics, I don't know what you want to call them, but people who are discovering their gifts, right? And
Mm-hmm.
they're like, how do you know if this is, my imagination, if I'm making this up, or if it's really me? And what I've come to understand is that when the voice is calm, when it's consistent, when it's steady, then that is the voice of spirit, even though it sounds in your tone, even though it's your voice that's coming through, that is spirit. When it's chaotic and anxiety and that kind of stuff, I don't feel like that's spirit. That's where you're like, that's where you cut the line.
But it's either ego or, in my opinion, or
Yep.
it is you're in a different dimension that you really don't want to be in.
Yep.
So how do you know because I think people really need to understand when we talk about the astral in the darker astral, because
Sure.
different people have different definitions for what the
Absolutely.
astral is. Some people say you don't want the astral, it's dark, it's murky. That's where the not pure information is,
Right.
which is what you might get out of a Ouija board.
Right.
Or you have divine information
Yep.
and it is pure and you are getting spiritually guided, well, clearer spiritual guidance than the other. How do
Sure.
you explain that to people?
Oh, wow. So, well, I don't know if you'll like this answer. So I feel like, the dark and the light, they have to coexist because otherwise we don't know the difference of the other, right?
Right.
I feel like the universe is constantly seeking balance. That's what it wants is balance. And so I do feel like there has to be a little touch of both, but to describe is your question like, how do you tell them, how do you
How do you tell them to discern the difference between the pure information and the, I don't know how to phrase this, because I don't want to say it's unpure,
yeah, sure.
but it's not,
Yeah,
clean.
sure.
There's negativity that's weaved in it.
Right, of course. Yeah, and I feel like that comes from, I think we're all psychic. We all have this ability. We all have this gift. It's just that yours and I's is heightened. It's more open, and other people's are not more open at this point. And so it's a matter of listening. It's a matter of feeling and trusting. If you walk down a dark alley and you're like, oh, I feel like there's somebody behind me, that negative, right? There's
Right.
probably somebody behind you. You can feel the energy, but you have to tune into it in order to feel it. So I feel like if there is dark energy and you're feeling that, that's when you know to step back or to redirect. We're antennas. We're trying to tune in, right? And so we just don't want to get the wrong station.
I love that. And I've heard that phrase before, and it's true. It is. It's like listening to an FM station and you want to tune in and make sure you get the right one
Yep.
that's going to give you the positive. And when I say positive, look, Spirit's going to give you information that
Sure.
you need to know to walk down that you may not feel or perceive as positive,
Mhm.
but the outcome from following the guidance, that's where the positivity comes from. Like Spirit will never tell you to harm anyone or any
Right.
animal, or do anything nefarious like that. They're never going to tell you to steal or injure or harm anyone.
Right.
And
100%.
that, and that's when you know that you're not in the right place too, because they'll never say that.
Mhm. And that comes with that feeling, because if they're telling you that, I guarantee you're going to get that little twinge that says, is it really? Like, really, this is what you're asking of me? I mean, your body knows. And I think the more that you practice living in this positive light in your daily life, in your human life, in your walking life, it's easier to do the transition when you go into the spirit world.
Yes. How do you guide your people, your clients or students, um, to be able to discern? Do you have a practice or something that you give them an exercise that they can practice where they would be able to learn the difference so that they know to trust? We go back to the trust comment,
Right.
what they're getting.
Sure. I mean, to me, it's just all in the feeling. It's like you have to sit with your spirit guides. You have to learn them first. You have to know who they are, even if you can't. So some people can't see, and some people can't feel. We all have different, abilities, right? But they have to know when they're in the good space, right? When they're in the right space in order to know when they're not. And so I always feel like teaching them to do meditation, to learn themselves, to learn their spirit guides first, to, get in touch with them and feel what that familiar goodness feels like, then you can easily tell when you're, on the darker end of things.
I like that. And I know you put on a lot of classes and you put on a lot of workshops.
Yeah.
Do you have classes for the psychic development or specialized in segments of psychic development?
Yeah, so the teaching is kind of recent for me. Like I've had the idea forever, and then I mentioned it to a couple of friends, and they're like, "Let's do it." So we did something, and then now I teach with a woman named Jen Reed, and she's amazing. And so the classes that we teach is like learning your spirit guides, like getting in touch with your spirit guides. So we'll do exercises or meditations on that. But the classes we're doing right now, it's like everyday things. Like people will come to our classes and they'll be like, no, I don't have gifts. And we're like, yes, you do. And so like one of the classes we're doing right now to learn, it's called align with your or awaken to your gifts, is literally one girl is just going to be doing flower arrangements. But when she's doing these flower arrangements, she's in her spiritual realm. She is working with spirit, and what she creates is something very positive. But she didn't realize she was creating this energy. So we're actually going to have her in there, and everybody there is going to make, flower arrangements. And so you can do simple things like everyday normal human things to get in touch with spirit. And so that's what we're doing right now, is a series of that. There's 3 of them. There's one of them who has healing hands and how she came about that. And then another woman opened up her own business, doing homeopathic, or I'm sorry, just all natural, like body products, soaps and lotions and things like that. So we can see I just want them not to think it's so woo-woo. It's in your everyday life. I want them to be able to recognize it.
And the other thing too is when you're doing something, especially something that is not mundane. It's not a mundane thing. But when you're doing one thing after the other and you have to really focus on it, it opens up your mind. You're not thinking about the other stuff. If you're thinking, if you're just focusing on where to put the flowers, or I used to do sweet table trays. And so, you take little bite size, sweets, and you'd have to put them, and these would be 40-foot tables.
Oh my goodness.
So, at first it'd be like, oh my God, but then I got into this very cathartic, rhythm of just putting it, and I would do these trays, and by the end of the hours, and they would take literally hours, I would feel like I was in this meditative floaty state because I start moving in here.
Yeah, you take, like, I think Joe Dispenza calls it taking your brain out of your body, or taking your mind out of your body. And when you're in this flow, when you're doing repetition over and over, and then you get into the vibration of it, like when you immerse yourself in it, you kind of let go of the anxiety, you let go of the thoughts, you let go of all this chatter, right? And you're able just to be in flow with this. So yeah, and that's the idea of these classes, is to get into this energy flow, this vibration.
Now, I know you do what's called a 4x4x4 kind of, is it a breath?
Yeah, it's a breath. And so, and I'm really bad. So please, if that's not what that breath is called, forgive me. Cause I just, I see things, I hear things, but I don't retain information or where it's from. But yeah, it's just, taking 4 counts in, breathing to 4, holding it for 4, and releasing it for 4. And so what that does is it naturally takes your body out of the fight or flight state. So people who have anxiety, if you're getting ready for a meeting, or if you can't go to sleep at night, I just ask them, even before meditation, I'm like, repeat this. I'll do this breathing with people in my office when we're doing meditation, just to kind of get their body out of fight or flight. And speaking of that repetition, when you're thinking 4 in, 4 hold, 4 out, you start getting into this flow because your mind's not in control anymore. You're trying to get into that energy flow.
Which is absolutely brilliant. I love that. And it's a big yogic thing when you have, even they call it equal breath. You're equal in, equal hold, equal release. And I mean, there's variations on it that people can also use to help them with their breathing, which will get them grounded and open, and you'll start feeling lighter.
Absolutely. I mean, even like sucking in your air and holding it until you can't hold it anymore, and then blowing it back out, like if you're blowing through a straw, like that, you'll feel immediate, like every time this is the breath I use before meditation every morning, and you'll feel an immediate relaxation, an immediate like lightness from doing that breath, because it's like too much oxygen to your brain, right? So it kind of like starts releasing everything for you.
I love that. And I think it's going to be so helpful. And I'm going to invite you all to try this, the equal breathing. Yeah. And the thing is if you're breathing in 6, holding for 6, releasing for 6, works the same way as 4x4x4.
Yep.
So now just know 2 by 2 by 2 may not work that well, but
A little extra hold than 2 seconds. Yeah.
just a little bit extra. So what do you feel like being psychic is for you? Like, what has it done for you when you remember when you weren't? Because I feel you've always been receiving, and you mentioned when you were a child you were receiving,
Yes.
but when you started on your path as an adult, what was it, the feeling that made you feel like, "Ooh, I'm actually psychic. I've got it. I'm able to help."
Yeah, there was a lot of doubt in the beginning. I again, like, I started doing readings for people before I even called myself a psychic. I just knew that I would
Mhm.
write things before people would talk to me, and then I would discuss the things that I wrote, and they would be like, "Oh my gosh, that's happening in my life," or "Oh my gosh, that's why I was coming here," or, "Oh my gosh, how'd you know that?" So I like, spirit trained me. Like, I was raw. Like, I never went and watched another psychic or read about another psychic because I didn't know that that stuff really existed in the capacity that it does, right? And then, so I'm grateful for my ignorance back then. Um, and as I got older, I didn't research a lot of people because I didn't want to be influenced until I was strong in my own, pattern, or I don't know what you want to call it, but my own um, formula, right? And so
Mhm.
that's when I really started understanding, like, through readings, when I would write and then I would discuss this with people before the reading. They were like, oh my gosh, they were very validating to me. And I'm like, I don't even know why I wrote this or how or what, right? Like, it just came up. So that was a big, I'm appreciative of that because that really gave me more confidence to recognize that I did have information that I thought was just normal
Mhm.
that other people didn't have.
It makes a difference when you realize that you have the ability to be of service.
Yep,
And that's what this is. Whether you're having a psychic reading or an energy healing session, you're being of service to help another. And
absolutely.
speaking of energy healing, um, I love this that you wrote this down. Healers cannot heal you, quote unquote. They can only hold space and help move energy so that you can heal yourself, which is such a powerful statement
Yeah.
because so many people have misnomers about working with an energy healer. Like, you're going to come in and you're going to poof,
Yep.
just take everything away with a magic wand, and
I
they don't
wish.
have to do anything but sit back and deal with it, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And so let's talk about your perception on healers don't heal you, they just shift the energy so you can
Yeah,
heal
they don't,
yourself.
and you do energy work as well,
I
so
do.
like, people will, come in and be like, "Okay, I have this problem, let's get rid of it." I'm like, "Oh, no." Like, "Uh-oh, wrong, a concept going on here." But, you know, I think the most powerful thing that I do during healing sessions is that I hold space for the person. I will literally, they're laying on a massage bed, right? And I will literally go to the head part and kneel down as if I were praying to them. I'm not praying to them, but I'm holding their head. And all I'm doing is holding space so that they can be the person they are in that moment without judgment. And how many people have ever been able to be themselves in a moment without judgment from anyone or anything? Um, so I'm sorry, did I answer your question?
You did answer my question, and you can go, you can go whatever directions you like it with talking about this. And it's funny because when I first started my practice, so I'm going to just give a quick story. People have heard this before, but
Yeah.
I was traveling with my husband. I was taking all the modalities I was using. It's like, I'm just use them for myself and friends and family and blah, 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 blah. And we were traveling, and all of a sudden I was sound asleep one morning, and spirit, it wasn't a nudge, big booming, like you hear, you see the exaggerated movie things screaming at me, telling me to start a practice and help people.
Yep.
So I did. But when I started doing that, like, I had an incident where I had a great session with somebody and they were fine for a few days. And then I woke up to a scathing email and phone message. And it was just, and what I didn't realize is that this person had issues that I wasn't made aware of, number one. But then I felt like, oh my God, am I a fake? Am I a charlatan? And there was a woman, and I can't remember, she was a guest on a podcast, and she was an energy healer. And she said, look, people are here to help you help yourself. If we go there with the intent and with pure intent and focus to helping them, you're doing your job. If they don't do their part of the equation,
Absolutely.
because it's a collaboration, that's on them. You've done your job and you've done it well.
And the other part to that too, Marla, is, people say, I have this sadness, I don't want to be sad anymore, but they're not willing to give up the sadness because they're stuck in their victim. So I can go in there and battle for you, but it's like this, you're fighting me. And so any work that I'm doing is going to be just in the moment. And when you leave my office, it all comes back. You have to be willing to put in the work. You have to be willing to take responsibility. You have to be willing to be in a place of acceptance and ready to do the work. This is a lifelong journey. This, none of this spirit world happens overnight, right? It's all a lifelong, right. Constantly learning. So, yeah.
It is. And self-responsibility. I love that you brought that up, because self-responsibility, so many people do not want to own their stuff. They don't want to be responsible for their stuff. It's always somebody else. Somebody else did this. Somebody else did this. And I talk about self-responsibility quite a bit. And there's a reason for it, because it's like when you're an alcoholic, AA, you have to say, I'm an alcoholic, right? Because you have to take ownership. You have to acknowledge what it is your issue is, so that you can then take it by the reins and shift it.
Absolutely.
But if you go, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right. No, go on. I mean, that's right. I mean, it is about responsibility. Like, we can't help you unless you're willing to help yourself. We can't help you. And that's like, goes back to the energy healing. We can't, like, you can go into an energy session, but if they're not willing to open up, to receive, to let go, to take responsibility, then really we're just singing and dancing for you, because it's both energies have to be working. And that's why I said, like, healers don't heal, we help you. We assist you,
we collaborate with you. I mean, that's what I look like. We're partners in crime, right? To try for the same outcome and goal. We work together for that.
Absolutely.
In unison. I love that. Who is your inspiration?
Yeah. So I like the people. So just like you, we're here to help people. Like, that's what I feel like my calling is. If anybody asks me what I'm on this earth to do, it's to help people evolve. It's to help wake them up. I'm not here to do the work for you. I'm here to help you evolve and wake you up, so that we can raise the vibration, so that we can move on to the next consciousness, right? And I really do feel like that's our job. Any light worker, I mean, that's what we're here to do. And going into this spiritual realm, like, I jumped into being a psychic, in my living room. And then when I started doing energy work, I felt like a weirdo, like, standing there, because I tried to become a Reiki master. And I'm like, this just doesn't feel right. So I just stopped calling it anything and just started doing whatever it was that I was doing. But I question myself because of the woo-woo aspect of it. Like, people constantly like, yeah, but what about this? Or what about that? Or, and coming at me. Well, then I discovered that there's people that are actually doing, bringing science to this. So that's your Joe Dispenza, your Bruce Lipton, your, Greg Braden. Yeah. I mean, those guys, they're just like, I just love them. They're amazing. Yeah. And so they really do help. Because as an energy person, a healer, or as a psychic, I know that what I'm seeing or doing is real and true. But how do I get that to you? Like, how do I make somebody who's not seeing and feeling and hearing the things that I do? How do I make them understand that? Well, then here comes these three guys, and I'm like, oh, okay, there's science behind this now, guys. So yeah, I love them. I'm so inspired. And in my next lifetime, I'm going to be a book person. I'm going to be like a nerd, and I'm going to read and educate the way they do.
They're phenomenal. And I think it was about Greg Braden, where he never, when he first started out, bringing all of this up, it wasn't for fame and fortune.
No.
It was, but to get people to understand that quantum is more, than this, and that scientists who don't believe, that they're proving those theories so wrong,
Oh,
that because they were closed-minded to it.
absolutely. Yeah, and science is, nothing is science until it's proven, right? So
Right.
everything's in the before stage until it's proven, and now they're starting to prove these things, and it's amazing because they do, hook people up to machines. They are getting the data. They are, running these things, and they're really getting the information. So they're just amazing at what they do, and I'm so grateful that they exist.
So those are your inspirations?
Yeah, I aim to be like them. I aim to be at that next level as far as educating people and awakening them on that level, like showing it to them and letting them see it, touch it, feel it, taste it.
It makes a huge difference. And it's funny because my husband, who's an engineer,
Yeah.
and when we first got together,
Well, that's
and
gotta be fun.
well, it was really interesting because for the longest time, I wouldn't talk to him about what I did because on our first time together, I started talking about energy and what it was. And I just wanted him to feel energy. So I wanted him to do that. I call it a parlor trick where you gather the energy by putting
Yeah,
your hands together and then you pull them apart. And then you feel the energy ball that you just gathered up. And he's like, I don't believe any of that. It's not science. I only believe science. And I make fun of him and we laugh about it now. But then it's like, okay. So it's like, I just didn't share with him
right.
details. You don't want to know? Then you know what? You lose out because I've got a lot of rich stuff to tell you.
Absolutely.
Well, a bunch of years later, after I started my practice and he started seeing all these shifts happening, his business was having a challenge, and he's like, "Would you do some work on my business?"
Yeah.
Well, things that I've done work, I still do work on his business, and his business has like hit these amazing levels that he never ever saw himself being at.
Absolutely.
So this is another skeptic that has been converted.
Yeah. And you can't push them into being, you have to wait for them to come to you. You can't try to push them because it's just like, they're not going to, they're like little kids. They won't, people who don't believe in it are not going to hear it until they need it and they experience, because they have to see it, touch, taste it. But that's just the beauty of it all. We're all different. Some of us are just in it and some of us have to be shown it.
Yeah, it's that whole Missouri thing. I'm from Missouri, and you have to show me.
Yeah.
You know?
The show me
I
thing.
had a teacher would say that to me all the time. You need
Yeah.
to show me. So, what is the most important thing you can teach the audience?
I feel like there's a couple things. Acceptance is the most important thing that I'm trying to teach people right now, is just to be in acceptance of what is, because as an intuitive, I'm sure people come to you when they need help, right? And
Right.
so that's where you're getting people, is when they're stuck, when they need help. They're not always in this great place, like the percentage of the people in great places coming to you are probably small. And so it's just accepting of what is. You can't go back and change it. So you take life from where it is at this moment. I will meet you there. We'll take breaths. You'll be able to breathe, and then we'll move you forward. So I just feel like acceptance, and that, there's a lot of things under that acceptance umbrella, is the worthiness and the judgment, and taking responsibility for your part in your story, right? And so acceptance is a huge thing for me right now.
I like that. That's really important because many people don't, and I was one of them. So
Yeah.
anytime I talk like this, I was one of these people where I would go around like not accepting my when what is and blah 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 blah. And I had someone tell me when I was in my 20s, and I didn't realize that she was using metaphysical or spiritual kind of concepts, but she is like, stop. She stopped me in my tracks and said, stop saying what if. Stop saying this. Stop saying I shoulda, woulda, coulda. You're exactly where you are for what you need to learn. What do you need to learn? What's going on and what do you need to learn from it?
Yeah.
And it started a whole different way of thinking.
Right. And so what was your step after that? Like, did you ask yourself the questions, or, like, how did you move?
Oh, no, I did something. No, of course not.
You just kept going.
I just kept going and making the same mistakes over and over again with different people, places, things,
Yep.
until I stopped, until I started down my path and started understanding what it was like when Deepak and Marianne Williamson and Wayne Dyer started coming on the scene, and for self-help, and that's before they really got spiritual.
Right.
um I couldn't wrap my mind around what they were trying to share. And when I went to my first mystery school, that's when I started going, oh my God. And that's obviously when I needed to have that wake up call, and the window shades came off, the
Right.
light came through, and I started getting it.
That's amazing. Yeah, and that's like the person that I teach with, my partner Jen Reed, like she will constantly preach about the pattern, and that's what you were just talking about, is like you kept doing the same thing over and over in different scenarios in your life. So I think when people start recognizing that there's a pattern, when you ever hear yourself, why is this happening again? Why do I keep dating the same people? Why do people keep coming in? Why do I keep taking the same job? That is a pattern. It is the universe smacking you in your face saying, did you get it yet? Did you get it
Yeah,
yet? Did
I
you get it?
love that. Yes, it's so
And you're
true.
like, okay. Then one day you're just like, okay, I get it. I get it. I'll stop. Um, but it's a pattern, and if you can recognize the pattern, then you can start asking yourself the questions. And I think that's where the shift in the path becomes.
And when you're in the pattern, you're in your victimhood, and you're not a victim.
Yep. Well,
And
and
that's
that's our programming, right? So that's all, like all that pattern stuff, all the stuff that we're repetitive with or just mindlessly doing is a pattern. And to step out of, or is a program, and to step out of the program, that's the work. That's what we're all trying to do, is step out of the program, right?
It is so true. It is so true. And we really want you to step out of the program. So I do want to share that if you check out foryourhighergood.com,
Yep.
that is Anita's website. Check it out so you can see, because she's got a class coming up, or a workshop.
Yep.
So what's the workshop about?
So we have a couple workshops. So the three that are the series that are coming up, we're actually doing a free meditation, but that's a small one for cancer, people who are survivors of cancer or have cancer. But so that's a small one, but we'll do those throughout the year. The series right now is the three, and that's people who have ordinary gifts, or like you think you're just regular and you don't have a gift, and so we kind of take the people through their journey. But our big class, our big workshop is next February, and it's called Life Cycle, and that's where I teach with Jen Reed, and that is amazing because she talks about astrology, which is the planets. It's a stamp of the planet's placement at the moment of your birth, right? So there's a lot of information that comes from that. And then we go into the human design, which is a stamp of the energy coming into the earth at the moment of your birth. And so what that tells you is if you're flowing with your energy, or if you've been fighting against it your whole life. And when you can see it, you can accept who you are. You can stop like fighting against the wind and go with it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so those are the things we have, the major things that we have coming up.
Human design is a really interesting concept.
Yep.
So what are you in human design?
So I'm a projector, right? I'm a 3/5 projector. So but that was something I had to learn, was to be invited, right? Because I always knew the answer. So I would just jump in and start telling people what they needed to do, or that. And I realized very quickly, and I only started like researching this maybe a year or 2 years ago. So I was like, wow, okay, this stuff is real. I need to pay attention. So
Yeah, it's phenomenal. I'm a manifestor generator, or
yeah,
generator manifestor.
manifesting generator. Yeah.
Yeah,
So you're
that's it.
go, 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 go. Yep.
Yeah, I was
You
just
have to
thinking
remind
about that.
yourself to rest. Yeah, you have to take time out. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't take many time outs. It's true.
Schedule it
It's
in.
it's so funny. So let's talk about organized religion. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, wow. Okay. So I grew up Roman Catholic. My grandmother is Sicilian off the boat. So there's like, you got the Sicilian, and then you got the Catholic, and you just don't ask questions, you just do, right? And I
Hmm.
don't denounce any religion. I think they're all great. They're all headed in the right direction, right? They're all trying to do great things. But I do feel like organized religion caps God out,
Hmm.
like caps source, universe, whatever you want to call it, Allah, it caps it all out. And when you can let the walls of religion fall and just be with source, it opens it back up. And there's so much more out there that your religion, I don't think they teach it because I don't think they know what it is. We don't have to know what it is. We're not here to completely understand, but we're here to explore. We're here to evolve. And I think opening that up, um, you know, there's just I don't know. I would think church is good for some people, but it's a place to go. And if that's your grounding spot, then, I'm not against religion in any way, but I just feel like there's more. And sometimes religion just says that there's not because they don't know how to explain what's on the other side of the ceiling.
I think part of it is also ego, that it's like you have to come to me, the human,
Sure.
for your redemption, for your forgiveness, for this and that.
Yep.
And so I'll just share, try to be really brief because this is about you, but my feelings, because I think this is such a phenomenal conversation about, in Genesis, I think it's like page 5, it says that we're all made in the likeness of God.
Right.
So when I started going on my path, it's like, oh, I get it. So if we're made in the likeness, that means God is in each and every one of us.
Absolutely.
If God's in each and every one of us, why do we need to go outside ourselves to another human being with their own prejudices and their own belief systems to ask for forgiveness or redemption? Why can't we just go, oh my God, I screwed up. I am so sorry. I will never do this again, and make amends to the person you might have hurt.
Right.
And then go on. Now, I think organized religion is fabulous for community, for support. I mean, I think there's a lot of positives to organized religion, but I truly feel that going to another human being to ask for forgiveness or redemption,
Right.
that
And
you're
you're
giving
right.
people your power.
Yeah, and you're right. That's trying to say this to somebody who's very religious. I'm gonna be like, Satan right now, because because they're gonna be like, oh, like you're dipping into the dark side now. But we are all a piece of God, right? You essentially are God. You essentially are a piece of the consciousness. And if it's only when we come together and acknowledge that and breathe as one breath that we are truly powerful and in the presence of your God, right?
Right.
Is in the presence of that consciousness. And so 100%, we're all a piece of God. We're all a piece. We're not here without the person next to us. We're all connected, whether we like it or not. So yeah, you're 100% correct.
And I had this conversation about how in each and every molecule in our system, we have our whole world. It's not just a molecule. All our DNA, all our Akashic records are in each molecule, 100%, which brings us into we are one, but we are many, because it still all goes out and it's connected like a big net.
Yes.
And people seem to think, no, me, I. That's programming. That's ego.
That is ego. And it's like, going into your concept of us all being one, it's like we all affect each other, right? So when there's a war going on somewhere else, you don't see it on TV or you're not paying attention to it, it's still affecting your energy, and so go ahead, what were you going to say?
No, go ahead, I'm listening.
No, I feel like we are all affecting each other. And it's even as simple as if someone tells you they do have cancer, I never try to be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, sometimes you are just sad because you're a human and it just pops out. But I try not to place that negative on there. I try to like envision them being healthy and walking away and being okay, because we really do affect each other, and we're not thinking that consciously going through our day.
See, and I do say I'm sorry, but you know why? Not because it's a negative. I'm sorry they have to go through that. I'm sorry that there's a lesson in there that somehow was brought to them and that they're going to go through this challenging time. I don't look at it as a death sentence.
Right.
I look at it as, like, okay, we need to do what we need to do to get through this, but there's a lesson in it.
Absolutely.
And my husband had throat cancer. So I'm sharing, like what I went through, because, oh my goodness, throat cancer. And it was right after the Michael Douglas throat cancer where he got all skinny and, that kind of thing. And it was like, okay. And maybe because I'm an energy healer and I was doing my thing, but yeah, I'm sorry that they have to deal with it. but I hope you learn from what it is that you brought to yourself, because it does come, in my opinion, from the outside in, energetically through the bodies before
Right.
it hits your physical body.
Right. And it's just our human program that just wants to go, oh, and like, go there in our mind, like this totally negative place where we need to be more like uplifting. It's like, okay, how, what can we do? Like, let's start thinking positive. Let's see you energetically through this, rather than the program of like, oh, that's so sad. And then putting all that sadness on that person. Because if everybody does that to the person,
Right.
it actually, in my opinion, makes their illness worse rather than make it better.
Right. So I think we both have a good solid point about, you know, when you say you're sorry, be sorry for the and I hate to put a right on it or right people,
Sure.
but the positive, gee, I'm sorry you have to go through this because it's an inconvenience and it doesn't feel good, but I'm putting you in my prayers because you're going to do okay.
Yep.
And that's both sides of it.
Yeah, and that's that fine line that you walk before you start pissing people off, is that there is this dark and light, and they have to coexist to bring balance. Everything's here to teach us lessons. Everything's
Yes.
here to teach us balance, to evolve, right? And so, yeah, it's a tough subject, but
It
every,
is, and I know you. I'm going to interrupt you because I'm going to segue into its charity shout out.
yeah.
And so your charity is Miles for Moffat at moffat.org. And so please explain what it is, why you're behind it, because it is part of what we're talking about.
Right. And so they specialize in cancer, breast cancer, and I think they're in Tampa because we go to Tampa for the walk. Unfortunately, one of my girlfriends passed away last Thursday from breast cancer, and but she was just so happy with the place, and it was a great it's like, there's a lot of walks, right?
Yes.
But they did a lot for her. I feel like they bent backwards for her. They were very educational towards her. Sometimes you go through those things and you don't really know what's going on. I felt like when she was telling me, or her sister-in-law was telling me about her cancer, I was like, what are you guys, doctors? Like, how do you know all this information?
Mhm.
I just felt like they were very good for her. They gave her a lot of hope. They walked her through it. They didn't lie to her. They were just very, I just got an amazing feeling from them. So if we can help, anybody at any time, and breast cancer awareness is coming up in October. So,
Yes.
like you had mentioned before. So, I just feel like it's a good place to put your money.
So check out Miles for Moffat, and Moffat is Moffitt at moffat.org. Please try and help. Whether it's Miles for Moffat, Susan G. Komen, Gilda's Club, or any of the cancer sites that can be helped. Yes, October 1st starts Breast Cancer Awareness. And for you women out there, if you are not regular in having your breast exams and mammos, please do. Please, please, please go get it done. I can't tell you. I'm fortunate that I have not had breast cancer, but God only knows we keep finding more things in my girls, and they keep having to come out. And but if we didn't have the research we have today, they wouldn't be able to find the things that I'm dealing with to take them out. So
Absolutely.
save your life. And this is any cancer, colorectum. Even though breast cancer is coming up, do your breast exam, do all your exams as regularly as you can so that you can be here for your children and your grandchildren or your spouse and partner, whatever it might be, and live the life you're divinely meant to live, which is in health, wealth, abundance. And I mean, we're not supposed to be struggling.
No,
That's not what spirit wants. But if you don't learn our lesson, we get challenged.
we do.
So, okay. What important message do you have for people?
That there is no right or wrong. Like I just feel like people are always looking to, like, is it right or is it wrong? There is no right or wrong. It just is. Again, it goes back to the balance, to the universe trying to teach us balance. To be able to trust yourself especially when people are trying to learn their gifts or open up to the spiritual side. It's like, well, I don't want to be wrong, or I don't like, what if I'm wrong? I'm like, there is no wrong. Like, do you know how many times I write the most ridiculous stuff on a paper, and I'm thinking like, okay, I don't know how this is going to fit in with this person's life. And they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I just blah, blah, blah. And they make it fit. And I'm like, okay, back in the day, I would have been like, is this right? But there is no right or wrong.
Correct. Well, in this particular case, I'm going to say you're right.
Yeah.
But I totally agree with you. I was doing a practice with somebody, and I held her hand, and I saw an octopus with her head on it. So it was her head with an octopus body, and all her tentacles were being pulled in different directions. And I'm like, oh, and what you learn, right? Don't filter, don't edit. This isn't
Right.
for you. It's none of your business. Just tell somebody, because they'll know what you mean, even though it's absolute garbage to
Craziness in
you.
your face.
Yeah, like what? And when I told her that, she goes, "Oh my God!" And she was just having her first book come out, and she had kids, and her husband wasn't well, and she had her business, and yeah, she was being pulled and tugged in all these different directions.
Absolutely.
So again, didn't make sense to me, but it certainly hit a chord with her.
Yeah, and there is no right or wrong in the sense, if you have goodness in your heart, if you have good intentions, then don't fear. Just trust yourself and go into it. If somebody else is judging you, that's because there's something broken within them. That's because they're struggling with something. It's not because of you. Don't take it so personal, right? So if you can just remind yourself, there's no right or wrong. It just is. It just is. This is part of the game that we're playing, right? I just feel like that would be, very helpful to people, keep in the back of their head.
I so agree with you. It's such an important thing to let people know. And if you're in a position, if you're in a situation, find out why you're in that situation, because you're in it to learn. And I just had this conversation. So when you said it earlier, and I'm repeating it, everything happens the way it's supposed to. And I look at everything both positive, and I used to use the words perceived negative, because perception is so powerful. But every aspect of every experience we have, we're supposed to learn. We're supposed to grow. So everything is a stepping stone to that learning, to that growth, to that expansion. So don't look at it as, oh, this is so horrible. Like, well, it might be not feel good in the moment, but let's turn the thoughts away. That's the other thing I wanted to bring up to you about talking about how important thoughts are, words are, what you say to yourself, what you say to others is so important and makes a difference.
Yeah. And again, it's our program. So it's very difficult to get out of that, because we've just been trained this way. We've been indirectly trained by our parents, by our religion, by our schools, by our government. Like, everything is constantly training us. And then we wake up one day and we're trying to untrain ourselves, right? Get out of that program and create, like as a kid, would you have ever thought of how you use your words? And now when I say stuff, I'm like, oh, I didn't mean that. I take that back. Like, I don't want to use that word out there because it has power behind it, right?
Yeah.
Even you saying like the perceived negative, like, you're being very mindful of your words, and that's very important.
Yeah, I agree. And people, you're right. It's about programming and changing your words. And so I use the clear delete. So you clear delete 3 times, clear delete, clear delete, clear delete. Whenever I have one of those thoughts or feelings, or if somebody cuts me off, and they startle me, and the knee jerk, of course, is like projecting, you asshole, kind of a thing. But then I'm like, clear delete, because then I start thinking, oh my God. Do they have an emergency? Are they sick? Are they trying to get someplace? There's so many things we don't know about what they might be experiencing. So I try to forgive myself for that human response,
Right.
because that's what it is, and show compassion, because they might have a need for that.
Absolutely. And that's the judgment too. It's like, if you learn, not to judge yourself, then you won't so easily judge others. Like you were just saying, like, do they have an emergency? We don't know, because we're judging right away. We're like, oh, they just cut me off, right? It's all about me. And it's not. So
yeah, it's offering to another being compassion and invisible support.
Right. The power of energy.
We have talked about so many things, and so we've got a little bit of time yet. Is there anything, I haven't brought up that you would like our audience to know about, whether it's about you, your business, your philosophies. It's an open forum.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Like, just again, I'm going to repeat myself and be repetitive because that's how I feel like it sticks in people's brains that there is no right or wrong. There's only lessons. We're here to learn balance, right? If something keeps smacking you in the face over and over again, it's a pattern. You need to start asking yourself questions. Why do I keep repeating this pattern? What am I supposed to be learning? Um, to learn acceptance, that to come out of your victim and just accept your life where it's at. Because if you don't accept it, you don't have to like it. Acceptance and like is two different things. I'm not
Right.
asking you to like the shit pile that you're in. I'm asking you just to accept it for what it is, and breathe, and then try to talk yourself out of it. So if you can accept that, you can move forward more easily. And the other thing I would, ask people to work on is their worthiness. Every person, you are just as worthy as the person next to you. You're just as important. You are just as enough. And if anyone or anything is making you feel like you are not worthy, like you're not enough, then it's up to you. You have the power of choice to remove yourself from those people, from that place, from that time, and get away. Because that, when we were talking about darky ick earlier
Yeah,
versus light, you're in the darky ick if somebody is making you feel like you are not worthy.
it's true. Or even making yourself feel like you're not worthy, because a lot of times, somebody might plant the seed, but people keep watering it. And then they end up having this bush of negativity, of,
Right.
unworthiness issues and not enough and low self confidence, because instead of believing who they are, they're believing what somebody else's projection is.
Yeah. And you're right. It is watering. You get stuck in that mindset and you just keep doing the hamster wheel over and over again. So yeah, but you have to believe that you are worthy, because we're all worthy. None of us are the same. We all have different gifts for different reasons. If we were all librarians, right? Like
Yeah.
what would happen? If we were all police officers, what would happen, right? Like we are all different for a reason, and you are all worthy in this moment right now.
And you're worthy in every moment. So, this moment forward, no, you are worthy of everything. You are worthy of great health, of prosperity, of happiness. I mean, and the list can go on and on and on. We're the most self limiting beings that is around.
Right.
And so let's stop limiting ourselves and be unlimited beings, because that's what we truly are. We're not limited, we're unlimited beings. And I just love that way of thinking about it.
Yeah, it is. Like we want to contain ourselves in our human body, but we're so much more. Like if you research what's in an atom and you realize what's inside each atom in your body and how many trillions of atoms you have in your body, you start to look at yourself a little bit differently. We're not contained in this body. We are so much more, because the energy is very expansive.
It is, and we are all creative beings, so we can create our reality the way we want it. But here's the thing: vibration, frequency meets frequency. And I talk about this a lot, and I'm sure we're going to have a few minutes on this one. That if you're in the weeds, literally, and you can't get out of that negativity, you're just going to be bringing that low level stuff to you. When you start healing, when you start bringing the positive into your world, into your sphere, then frequency raises. Then higher frequency experiences come to you, and that keeps going and going and going.
Right. Yeah, and that's that whole like you're tuning in, like you're just think of yourself as a walking antenna. If you want to hear rock music, you have to turn into the rock station, otherwise you're going to get, you know, opera music, right? So
Right.
you have to find the frequency. You have to find, but it's your choice. You have to place yourself in those higher vibrations. You have to move yourself that way. You have to act a certain way. If you want more money, act like a person who has more money. It doesn't mean you go buy more expensive things. It just means that you appreciate your day more because you have more time, because you have more money. You just have to put yourself in those in those scenarios to help yourself elevate those vibrations.
And stop, please, please, I beg of you, stop saying, I'm broke, I don't have money,
Oh, yeah.
please stop saying that
Oh,
because,
your money treats you the way you treat it. So if you love it, it loves you back. If you write a check and your bill and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to write a $300 check to so and so, just be grateful you have the $300 to write. You don't have to
right.
like you're giving it away, but you have to love that you're being able to write it.
So have you heard of Ken Hanada?
I have not. Tell me.
So Ken Hanada has a book, and let me see if I can pull up the book so I can tell you what it is. But to Bridget, it's one of those books for abundance. And what he talks about, and I'm just going to tell you, Happy Money is what it's called
Oh
by
yeah.
Ken Hanada. And so what he does, and he'll share in the book his philosophies and everything, but when he pays a bill, he's Japanese, so he says arigato. But with everything, he wakes up in the morning, arigato. He buys a coffee, arigato. And he keeps thanking the universe for the abundance to pay for the coffee, pay for his bills, which is what you were talking about.
Your 52 days of gratitude, right? So, I mean, sorry, 52 weeks of gratitude. Same concept.
Yeah, that's it. Were you in that book?
Was I what?
There was a book called 52 Weeks of Gratitude.
No, I've just seen that there's like a 52 weeks of gratitude, and it's like it's the same thing. Like they just want to
Right.
promote.
It's you do a practice. So one week a year, and then you change the practice but it's basically what we're talking about is changing your habits, changing your ways. And
Yep,
it takes more than a week to change it, but if you start incorporating it, the shift will start to happen even if it's for a week for
yep.
each practice.
It will, but it's you have to be disciplined. You have to, you got it. It's not fun getting out of the program. It's not easy. It doesn't feel good, right? You just have to be dedicated to it.
Not at the beginning,
Right.
but at the end,
It just
you
flows to you. Mhm.
and it feels so amazing. Anita, this has been such a wonderful, enlightening, and fulfilling conversation. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're the best, Marla. Thank you so much.
I so appreciate you coming on the show. Please check out Anita's book, which is called My Spirit Guides Speak, and is on Amazon and where else?
You can find it on my website at foryourhighergood.com, and you can also find the upcoming classes that we spoke about on my website as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So grateful for you.
Thank you.
And I want to thank Bridget, as always, my right hand, my left hand. What would I do without you? I love you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I want to thank you, the listening audience, for taking time out of your day, out of your life to be a part of this show. This show is, I truly, truly, from the bottom of my heart, do this with you in mind because I want to bring you amazing people like Anita, who has great information, great support, and can be of great service to you. So please check her out. But that's why I do the show. So I hope that you're receiving what I'm putting out and what my guests are putting out. And I'm so grateful for you. I want to ask that you check out my website at marlagoldberg.com, and Goldberg has 2 R's. See what I do and how I can work with you. You can also read past blogs and articles that I've seen. Thank you, Francine. Appreciate you too. And also to Amy Pierce, thank you. As I leave you, I want to ask you to subscribe, like, and review the show so that you don't miss a version of it. If you have a metaphysician or you have a subject you'd like to see on the show, please email me at either Marla at mghealer.com or Guided Spirit Conversations so that we can bring more of what you're asking for onto the show. So I think we're trying to accomplish that with, like I say, amazing people like Anita. And as I leave you, I send you love, blessings, and gratitude. I am so grateful that you are in my life in whatever capacity you're in it, because not only am I your teacher, I am your student. And not only are you my student, you are my teacher. So remember, we all learn from each other and we teach each other. And that's another way that we are all one. We're all connected. If you haven't heard these words today, let me say them to you. And if you've heard them, I'm just going to say them again. I love you. You are loved. and not just by your family, not by your friends, just by your friends or by me. You have so many beings on the other side of the veil who love you, who want to work on your behalf, but they don't have free will. So please ask them for what you need, for your help, the support, for your guidance, whatever it is you need, ask for them. The second part of that request is be open to how it comes to you, because it doesn't come to you in a linear way. It can come to very esoteric, so you need to be very open, aware, and mindful. And with that, I'm going to leave you by saying once again, happy fall. I'll see you next week and stay well. Take care. Bye for now.